Hello, my friend. In today's episode, I'm talking to Luka Hocevar, who is incredible. He's the founder and CEO of Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance. And he's been an industry leader in the fitness space for many years. Many of you probably know Luka already. And in this conversation, we have an amazing conversation. It's always a good time with Luka. And we cover a ton of topics. We talk about the power of branding, particularly in a crisis, how to cultivate resilience in your life as a business owner, the value of taking time just to think, which is sometimes a radical idea these days. And Luka shares with us an exercise that you can do to develop a kind of alter ego that helps you see new opportunities and new perspectives. So if that sounds exciting to you, it really was exciting for me. So I hope you stick around and keep listening. The Business for Unicorns podcast is for fitness business owners who want actionable strategies to grow their business, take amazing care of their clients, and build a life and business they truly love. I'm your host, Michael Keeler, co-founder of Mark Fisher Fitness, and through Business for Unicorns, I'm a coach and consultant to industry-leading fitness studios around the world. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Business for Unicorns podcast. I'm so excited about my guest today, Luka Hocevar from Vigor Ground Fitness. You've just heard his bio from me a few minutes ago. And so without further ado, I want to welcome Luka. Welcome to the podcast, Luka.
What is up, my friend? Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're recording this December, and so just thanks. It's the holidays, and 2020's been nuts. So anytime you can give, I truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. And when I can't see you guys as much physically, I mean, actually, this would be around a time when I'd be in New York, because it'd be stronger New York, end of November, beginning of December. We'd be hanging out and doing something, or at least seeing each other.
Yep.
Not doing events and seeing each other at events and stuff like that. Put it this way, this is definitely better, for sure.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. It's always great to see you.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I have to start every conversation in 2020 with what has this COVID roller coaster been like for you and your business? And I know we could probably spend the whole time talking about that, but in a nutshell, how have you personally and professionally been navigating this COVID roller coaster? That's how I'm referring to it these days anyway.
It's definitely, I mean, when you say roller coaster, I think that's a very good analogy, because at the beginning, I'm sure, like you guys, right? Like you get the shutdown and you're kind of like, how bad is this? Not how bad is this just for business. The first view, how bad is this for, as far as when it goes to sickness, and how bad it's going to be for the world and the people and everything else. And the longer it went, then you start going, okay, well, what about the business, right? How are we going to figure this stuff out? Because, at the beginning, we pivoted real quick, and I know the word's been overused, but for purposes of every understanding, we pivoted quick online and did, Zoom classes. We had a full blown schedule and everything else. Then you start about a month and a half in. For me, it was like, okay, well, how does everything look like afterwards? How do we reopen? How do we, as the revenue keeps, dropping of monthly memberships, and, some people, I would still say we did really well considering, we have a really strong culture like you guys, and, but nonetheless, people lose jobs, people get afraid, they freeze, they cancel. And I chose to, continue to pay my team, close to, normal, as far as salaries go and everything else. And that was a big, put it this way, financially it was challenging, but I felt it was the right thing to do. But of course, that also brings up then, okay, when we reopen, how are we doing this? What are the restrictions and limitations going to be? For all of us that ran at least one part of our business, was we call it team training, which is a large group model. Mm-hmm. Now, when you have a large group training model, and you're averaging certain classes and sessions, 25 to 30 people, and then you have to open with, 8 or 10, I mean, you're losing money in that class essentially, right? You have to open more classes. You have, your payroll goes up for team training. And thankfully, our business is semi-private personal training, small group and then large group. And we've added a lot more one-on-ones now too, which was what helped us, and having a diversified business. We can talk about that a little bit or a lot. But it's an important thing for sure. But you kind of, I think that word uncertainty for a lot of people is the challenging one, because you're kind of prepping for things, and then, oh, we're closed again, or we're open again, but you can do this, but you can't do that, and your cleaning expenses go up. So you're kind of like, roller coaster is the exact right word, because you're constantly having to be reactive. And, I think for anybody that's been in business for a long time, we understand that being pre-active, like
Yeah.
ahead. And of course, I think it was actually Mark that might have said this, right? Plans don't always work, but planning does. You plan, right? And
Yep.
and now it's kind of been, same thing with the second shutdown for us, where it's like, oh, well, you're shutting down again, and you have to adapt, because it's like, well, it'll only be 30 days. So
Yep.
it's been a lot of kind of like, one, we mentioned talking about resilience, but being creative and rolling with the punches. I think that's one of the things that is almost a characteristic if you're an entrepreneur and you've been doing it for a long time. But now, at least for me in this phase, I have throughout this year really thought about more about the future than maybe in a long time, or maybe ever before. Almost like a reset for like, hey, what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Because we just hit, like, we're going to year 13 for Vigor Ground in Seattle. Literally, our anniversary would have been like last week.
Wow.
And no, 2 years ago we threw a massive party. Throw a massive party, but no parties right now. We'll have to
Yep.
wait a little bit. But obviously you kind of go in our gym in Slovenia. We've been 14 plus years, so you kind of go, well, there's always this evolution, and in this time I'll say that there's been some really like things I'm really excited about that I've been working on, both offline brick and mortar, and then also some models and things of moving online, and some hybrid models and things like that.
Yeah.
That you think through and you go like, hey, what? And the question is like, hey, what is the best, I would say, approach to delivering these services for the people, considering the times and where we're going and everything else, right? And then I'm a big doodler and whiteboarder, and I'm just like the beautiful mind, like drawing stuff up on the board and shit. But that's, so it's been all of those things, and it's been all of those things. And to be honest with you, some days you're like, putting out fires and going crazy, and some days I lock myself up and I'm just drawing stuff on a board. It's
like a madman in your room with a whiteboard. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all of it. It has been a really, really wacky time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because, this kind of actually transitions a little bit to our topic, with our next, the first topic I want to talk about. Because when I think of Luka, I really think of two words first come to my mind. One is swagger, because you just got style. And two is resilience, right? That I know anyone who knows you and knows your life story and your professional career knows that you are a hard worker. You've had some punches thrown at you in your life. You've had ups and downs, and that you are so resilient as a person. And I imagine that resilience has served you well during COVID. And I want to talk more about resilience and where it comes from in you and how people can cultivate it. But I'm also hearing you say that your ability to push through this COVID experience has been a little bit about making sure that you have some plans and you actually embrace planning as a process. And that during these times of crisis, you've been more focused on planning in the future than maybe ever before. And I'm hearing a lot of people that I'm talking to express a very similar sentiment, which is 2020, yes, has been terrible in many, many ways, but it also has provided a little bit of a kind of a reset button to reset how we think about or approach our business. So before we get to resilience, I just want to hear you talk a little bit more about, how have you used planning in this moment to help rethink how you see your business? You talk about diversifying your services, thinking more about the future. So how have you done that? What does that look like for you?
I mean, it's, some of the things, everybody's kind of journey to where they are is different. We talk about, 20 different people we know that built a business in a very different way. So for me, I've always been a lover of community, face-to-face, skin-to-skin, brick and mortar. I legitimately don't believe that I'll ever, get away from that. Matter of fact, my goal is to go even more into that in a sense, maybe a little bit different, not multiple gyms, but in different ways. Now I'm bringing this up because I have not really gone hardcore or really focused a lot on online. I mean, I've had business consulting and coaching for 7 years. That was all basically online, but when it comes to end user fitness, essentially, right? And so this time has been definitely a time where it was like, okay, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. And also I did some things right when it comes to building the brand. And maybe we can touch on the brand part. I think brand conversation is actually really important right now for brick and mortar owners. And I'll tie this all together so that I'm not just like pinballing over.
No, it's great. It's all part of the same pie. Yeah, it's all part of the same. Yeah.
But it was, for example, so I started on YouTube 13 years ago, right? 13, 14, something like that. And it was, I'm just posting videos of me training. It wasn't, it was just Luka Brute, I press dumbbell heavy. It's like it wasn't like great content or anything like that. But I got rolling. So, and then I got more consistent. The last 5-6 years I've been really consistent, and it was it was intentional, but it was like a ninth side hustle. Like.
Yep.
But I had a strategy, meaning like, hey, when I create content, like no matter what I do, it also goes on YouTube, and over those, like, especially these last, 5 years, it's kind of like snowballed into now 65,000, 66,000 subscribers, right? So, and, and people that do YouTube are like, wow, that's really good. And I did zero optimization, right? And now I'm optimizing it and it's getting some results and benefits. But what that's also done is branding for Vigor and Luka. I mean, there's 10 million views or whatever it may be, right? And it's organically growing. And same thing on Facebook, right? Like I committed to creating content that would give a lot of value to audiences. Mm-hmm. And essentially, there's basically 4 ways to create brand. It's make people laugh, make people cry, make people feel, and give them value in advance. And I try to focus on those 2, especially give value in advance a lot, and then the feel one, right? But like, and so over time you get this, you build a brand, people recognize you for a specific thing. And so the reason I bring this up is because sometimes people are like, yeah, I'm going to also do, fill in the blank. Yeah. But if you didn't build a foundation for these things, then it's harder. And then you're the person that goes like, well, look at that guy doing it, but I'm not, and it's like, all these years of intentional work, right? So, but building a brand means now that like we're a brick and mortar business, right? In Renton, Washington, it's 15 minutes from downtown Seattle. And, like I run Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit, which I feel like is one of the top summits, when it comes into that industry. But we're a gym, right? So this is, I was talking to a friend the other day, and it's like, like if I had to pick between all these places, NSCA and this, I'd come to the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit, right? You guys got the best speakers and it's awesome and blah, 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 right? And I bring this point up to say, like that you can create a brand. Now it can be smaller or bigger. It can be a brand, in your town or maybe in your state, or it can be nationwide or it can be worldwide. But when you create a brand, it's the same thing as Apple, right? Like if Apple made a car, Apple lovers would buy the car. Yeah. Right? If Dell makes the car, nobody's going to buy that car. Right? The brand is bigger than just like we make XYZ. So our tagline on the site, which another thing that took me a while to kind of figure out, was like, hey, we help our clients change their bodies so they can change the stories to their life, right? And now, here, can I do that physically, brick and mortar? Yes. Can we do that like in a setting of a summit where, every year people are like, hey, the summit changed the direction of my business and how I do things? Can we do that if I deliver training online through whatever form? We have a Vigor app now. That's part of what's going to launch next year. Challenges that are like lower end to get people rolling into XYZ. We're, building a 4-series workshop for gym owners. Like, it doesn't matter. My point being is the brand does this. Now there's different mediums where we can kind of deliver this from. So, to loop it back around, during this time where the world goes nuts, and the hardest time for brick and mortar, right? Mm-hmm. Especially gym owners, restaurant owners. I mean, there's specific industries that just got hit really, really, really hard. Building that foundation and thinking about brand and going like, hey, like, let's now, launch into these different areas and still do what our mission is. My mission is still that tagline that's on the site, but there's also different ways that I can deliver it. Now, I don't want to stop doing brick and mortar, and never will. Matter of fact, to me, it's like, this is, Vigor here is the lab, right? This lab, I'm always studying, the team's always studying on how to better coach people. training, nutrition, mindset, recovery, right? Those 4 puzzle pieces that we have. Right? So we're always working on that. But then I'm also working on, hey, how do I market? How do I do business? So I'm in this lab, I'm always learning and improving on these areas. And then I'm going to go and teach them in different ways and different platforms. But I personally believe that you can't get the best at this craft if you're not doing it like we are here, meaning we, all of us, right? Like that are in this industry. That's just my personal opinion. I think online is great. I think we can help a lot of people. Personally, just in my opinion, experience, like I gotta be skin to skin face. I become the best coach that I can be.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to hear you talk about this, Luca, because just, you have such a great way of kind of understanding your own thinking about this stuff. That's so valuable. And as you're talking, one of the phrases, or I don't know if it's who said this, but I always hear people say that during a crisis, and this year has been a crisis, people default to their habits, their training, and their values. Yeah. And that's exactly what you're describing here. And I think in some ways, having a really solid brand that's known for doing a specific thing helps, because during a crisis, people default to their habit of seeing vigor as being this specific thing. And it's a reputation that you've cultivated over 13 years now, plus, I'm sure. And that's really useful during a crisis. People know what to lean on your business for. They know what to come to you for. And that, and that you also have defaulted to your values in the crisis, and that you still take care of people, do what you do best, keep sticking to your mission. You stay the course. So I think so much of that just brings me back to that phrase of, during a crisis, how do you as a business owner take advantage of the fact and really leverage the fact that people are going to default to their habits, their trainings, and their values? Because it seems like you've done that so well. And I'd love your idea here of like, I know I'm a brick and mortar dude. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. And during a time of crisis, I can express that work in all kinds of ways. It may not be the thing I want to do forever, but I'm creative enough, I'm nimble enough that I can do that. And I think that's such a great lesson to all of our listeners.
It's what it is. I kind of create an analogy of, like, to me, Vigor, like this building, and it's like the heart, right? It pumps, and because I'm so purposeful about it and passionate about it, about people in the community. And then basically the arteries kind of that pump out of it are all these other things that we're building that can help a ton of people, right? But I can't, because of course somebody will always say, like, what's the most profitable? Where can you have the most margins? And it's like, well, listen, sometimes, we can kind of understand this, that sometimes there's another part of the business that might be, more profitable. But if you take away the less profitable or the harder part of the business, the other stuff doesn't work either,
Yeah.
So this is the heart that pumps everything for me, right? Because it gives me, like, when I can talk to my coaches every day and see these amazing, humans that come into the gym every day and interact with them, and, learn about their fears and their obstacles and help them move forward in their life. That is a constant fuel for me. It's a constant inspiration for me. And what it does, it's fueled, obviously, the content that I create. And then because of that, now it's kind of crazy, because I'll post stuff and I get messages every day from all around the world. I mean, like, a couple of days ago, I get a message from, a coach in Nigeria, and it's like, hey, like, everybody here follows you and does your workouts. And I'm like, this is crazy, but what it does is that fuels you, right? But it all starts from here, right? From that brick and mortar. Now at the same time, like, you have to decide who you're going to be and what you're going to do. So I'm sure, like, people that are like, hey, I'm going to, build the biggest fitness franchise. I'm going to, license. I'm going to go do this, that, and the other. If you ask me about 8 to 10 years ago, I'm like, hey, we're going to have Vigors everywhere. And as time went by, I kind of started understanding myself better, what I enjoyed the most, what my genius and gifts are. And I'm like, you know what? I really, I just want one gym. And I mean, we have the gym in Slovenia too. I'm just very hands off there. I'm basically, consult for them and do things like that. But, like, hey, I want one, and then I want to make this the best gym I can possibly make, and then teach everything that we do. And then that goes in all types of different ways, because, now it's turned into, obviously I own some real estate, and, stuff that maybe I'm not as super, super passionate about, but it's just, smart long-term stuff. But I only teach the things that I do, I've done or I'm doing. I want to be able to go like, look, I learned all this stuff, but then I applied it. Like then I want to teach it.
Yeah.
And the thing
I
is,
think,
that was my
yeah.
philosophy, right? Like,
Yeah, I think it's a really great philosophy, though, Luca, because the gym owners that I talk to, a place that I see them get it wrong a lot is that they're not as clear as you seem to be right now about what your home base is, or for you, your beating heart at the center, right? That they're not clear about it. So what they wind up doing is, they have this thing that makes them money and that is working, but then they get distracted either by shiny object syndrome or opportunities, and they abandon that beating heart to go explore other opportunities, leaving that thing that made them, that thing that was the core service offering that was working for them, just it stops working because they just stop feeding it. So I love this analogy that you use of you have to know what the beating heart of your business is, the center of it that makes money, that works, that you're passionate about. And if that's strong and you continue to invest in that and keep that strong, it will afford you the opportunities to go try other shit, to go experiment other places. But if you can't keep that strong and keep learning from that core thing that you are best at, then it's not going to last forever. You have to keep cultivating that. So I think that's such a great way of thinking about it. I want to turn back to resilience for a second. Yeah, just because I know this is something that I just from knowing you that as long as I know is a strong suit of yours, and I know that you've talked before in talks I've watched about how your life experience has given you some resilience. And for listeners, at least, I think of resilience as like the ability to recover from difficulties, right? The ability to bounce back from adversity. And I know for the many people that I've come in contact with in this industry have gotten their resilience from life experience. But for the folks who are listening, who maybe don't have the benefit of having that kind of adversity to bounce back from, the benefit of adversity, I'll put in quotes, to bounce back from, how do gym owners now, ones that are just starting, who find themselves dealing with COVID or other challenges, how does one cultivate resilience? Like, how do you build up that strength in yourself to have a thick skin and bounce back when stuff goes wrong? Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the first thing is perception, right? Because we could talk about a lot of stuff, but you have to have a view of the world where you understand that, like, hey, look, these challenging things that are happening that might be out of my control. Like I have, Eric Greitens, I think, said, resilience is taking 100% responsibility of your life. I agree with that. Like that. And that's a perception. That's a kind of belief. First of all, because if you're in a place where when things happen like this, like something else, and this year has been challenging beyond, for in my life, what I would say close friends that have passed away. I mean, just there's been a lot of things that have happened, beyond just COVID, that have been challenging. And if I constantly was like, and look, I get sad, I get upset, I get angry, I get frustrated, I get mad. If I stayed there going, blaming life, the universe, God, that's going to be a very, very challenging thing. And it's going to beat you down. I mean, that's the opposite of resilience, right? Because you're waiting for something or somebody to save you or to give you, like, hey, I threw this at your business, so don't worry, just wait. Now I'm going to throw you a bunch of money or this massive opportunity. And it's like, and you're like, I'm waiting for it, or blaming, right? Because it's like, it's their fault. It's this person. It's the government. It's Trump. It's whoever, right? Like, you're basically, as soon as you point, you give power to somebody else, right? And like, I would say the number one, with resilience is like, how do you take your power back? Well, you take your power back by going, it's on me, right? And like, hey, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. Hey, car hits you and you got to go to hospital, you got a broken leg. It was a drunk driver, right? Is it your fault? Of course, absolutely not. Like, could you have done anything to avoid it? No, I mean, call it whatever, fate. And I'll talk a little bit about a great thing that I heard Matthew McConaughey say, but it was, it's mostly like, now it's your responsibility to rehab, to get back, to be stronger, to learn something from it. And now you've overcome adversity, now you're building resilience. And because we're, I'm a gym rat, obviously. So my analogy of this is that, like, you have, physical resistance, and when you load the weight, and over time you keep loading the weight, you get stronger, you build muscles, your bone density goes up, so on and so forth, right? Well, we have to think about, and I say this over and over again, I'm okay with saying it 1,000,000 times over, is like, what is your mental weightlifting regime?
Yeah.
What is your emotional weightlifting regime throughout your days, weeks, and months? And for people, because you said, okay, somebody that hasn't been thrown maybe into some challenging things in life. Well, the thing is like, you can still practice these things. You can practice building your mental fortitude, right, and capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Practice building your emotional capacity through things such as, look, I'll say, like, one of those things is reading.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things is putting yourself in a little more challenging situations. And it could be things like, hey, I've never spoken in front of a crowd, but I'm going to speak in front of 10 people, and I'm right. And then you go and, like, you stumble a little bit and you fall and you don't do that great, and somebody picks you back up and goes like, hey, look, try it again, try it again, try it again. Like, that's building resilience. And it can be, that's the thing is, like, what is resilience for one person or another? Like, I'm not here to judge and say, well, you haven't gone through things I've gone through in my life. And listen, there's people that have gone through a lot more challenging things than I have, right? Everybody's got their resistance that they have to face. And when you face resistance and you lean in with courage, right, then guess what? You build more resilience. It's like if it was a video game, right? It's just like every time you go into something challenging, big or small, it's like a little power bar on the side goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's such a great concept, Luka. And I want to pause for a second because I made a great graphic for these moments I want to pause for. So this graphic is, listeners or watchers who are watching this video, you should go write that down. Write down what Luka just said. And the question that really stood out for me is what is your version of kind of weightlifting challenge for your mind, for your resilience, right? How are you increasing the load, so to speak, over time, for how you're challenging yourself emotionally or mentally? And I think that there's so many great ways to do that. And Luka mentioned a few: challenging yourself in terms of getting out of your comfort zone and trying something new, challenging yourselves and solving new problems, or being around people who are different or smarter or, in different industries as you. So yeah, I think it's such a great point, Luke, that you bring up. That,
can you give an example? Because I know I like to be practical too. I know when I always like for when, we do a show like this to go, can somebody take something and actually use it every day? That's a framework and a practical thing. So I'll give you guys an example of what mental weightlifting could be. It's a exercise called positive focus. And essentially, I did this probably for about 1.5 years straight, seriously, when I joined up Wake Up Warrior at first. And you take an event. Most of the time, you want the event to be what you perceive to be negative, okay? And you name it without emotion. So what happened? So we're gym owners. For instance, last week we lost 5 members, right? There's no emotion attached to that. It's just a fact. It's a statement. Okay, so first question in positive focus is, what happened? We lost 5 members. The second question is, why is it positive? Now, this is where the trick happens, right? Your brain is going to go like, there's nothing fucking positive about this, right?
Right.
But why is it positive? Why is it positive? Why is it positive? So you start searching. Okay, well, I got to find out. Okay, I'm going to find out why this is positive. You know what? This is why it's positive, because we're going to be able to discover why we're having, low retention. Okay. Right. So that's positive. If I discover something that's not working well, is it positive for my business? Absolutely. Right. So the third thing is not a question, it's a statement. Or essentially it's like, what would be the t-shirt tagline from this lesson for you? Right? And it might be like a complaint or a failure is a gift. Right.
Yep.
So that might be what you learned is like, hey, like, we failed here, but it's a gift because it's allowing us to see, where we're failing so that we can improve our customer experience, our follow-up, whatever went wrong there. Right. And then there's, the second part of positive focus is, for me, I used to do it in like 4 different areas of life. Okay. So this lesson, right? Failure is a gift. How can I apply this into body, right? So your physical, then being would be, if spiritual, if like I said, whatever that means for you. then balance is your relationships, and then business is obviously into your business, right? So it's essentially what we did is like we took a lesson, we took something that happened, we extracted a positive lesson from it, and then we applied it, and how could we do that, put that into other areas of our life. Now, please don't discount this, okay? Because there's a couple of things that are happening here with this practice. It is a practice, okay? You're practicing a skill of allowing like what we perceive or most people perceive a negative thing to happen, and we're turning it into a lesson that we then apply. And if we take action with that application, guess what happens? We improve. Now, I can tell you right off the bat that when I was doing this for a year, here's what happened with the guy. Okay, so negative thing happens. For some people, they stay in that space. Oh my God, lost 5 members. Oh, geez. You know, the whole week goes by. You're pissed, right?
Just a spiral.
You spiral, and you're not fixing anything. You're just focusing on a problem, right? And it's almost like, you know, if you're driving down the highway, I mean, you just stopped on the side. You stop, right? Where with positive focus, like sometimes, hey, look, you might slow down. You're learning a lesson so that you can then speed back up again. But you're actually reframing your brain, because your brain is good at looking for problems and going negative, right? It's just how we're wired.
Yeah.
So we're actually practicing rewiring our brain to when negative shit happens, we go, what's the lesson here? Like I started automatically, my time started getting cut down so much from like worrying about why I messed up or what we're doing wrong, to going like, what's the lesson here? Okay, lesson. Okay, what can we apply that? Boom, boom, boom. And basically the gap just started going like this, to where now, look, I deal with frustration. I get upset sometimes, and sometimes it lasts longer, sometimes a little bit less. But on average, it's so much less that I can keep moving forward really quickly, right?
Yeah.
That is a practice. Like you go to the gym, you shoot with your left hand because it sucks. Day 1, you're going to suck, right? Day 50, if you keep doing it, you're like, damn, I got a nice little floater here with my lefty, right? But you cannot expect to get great at being resilient, to get great at like shifting your mindset and perception, to be able to hold space emotionally, if you don't practice these things. They don't just happen. Just like it didn't just happen that you became a great coach. It didn't just happen that you became a gym owner that knows his stuff, right? You have to practice it. And so this mental and emotional weightlifting, we have to look at our schedules and go, okay, well, listen, let me zoom out on my day and my week, and let me look at what I'm doing, right? Your time. So remember, your time and your watch and your wallet are the things that determine what you're committed to. Where you put your time and where you put your money are what you're committed to, regardless of what you say. If you tell me like, well, nah, Luka, I'm really working hard. Okay, let's zoom out. You know, let's put a mute on that and let's look at your life. Really, I do this all the time, you know, and also when I do it, I go, ooh, man, I'm not as committed to that as I said I was. And I have to, you know, shuffle things around. And, you know, you gotta look at that and go like, how much of that are you doing? You know, and sometimes that could be team meetings or specific people in your life that, you know, you ask you challenging questions where that make you go like, oh, we're not doing that great, you know, and to be able to take that and go like, okay, that hurt, oof, but it's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, this practice is so important, Luka, and I hope listeners and viewers that, you know, that you're taking notes, because, you know, what Luka is saying here, and it's a theme in what you've shared, at least in this conversation so far, Luka, is this sense of personal ownership, of that you own, you know, the challenges that you have, you own the experience you have. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility, and that just this practice really helps people embody that, right? This positive focus thing. And so it really, I just want to repeat the steps for people who are listening, which is the first step is just write down what the heck happened, right? No emotions, just black and white, label the event, you know? And then number 2, how do you describe step number 2 again?
Why was it positive?
Yeah, what made it positive? I think another, you know, not to change your process, but another way you could think about it is, where's the opportunity here? You know, what's good about this thing that probably feels crappy? And then, you know, and then what's the lesson? What's the lesson I could put on a bumper sticker or a T-shirt? And then, you know, how do we apply that lesson to other places? So what you're turning is something that maybe was not ideal into a really positive lesson, and then into a lesson you can apply to that and other things. I mean, that's just huge. I mean, it's the definition of growth, right? right? It's a definition of resilience, is that I can turn a negative thing into an opportunity. And so I really hope, listeners and viewers, you're really, writing that down, because as Luka said, it doesn't happen automatically. Just listening to this or watching this doesn't make it happen automatically. You need to go make it a practice, like meditation or weightlifting or whatever other practices or habits you have in your life. It's got to be consistent. So that's huge, Luka. I really hope people take that and run with it.
I would like to. I'm paying attention to time. Michael, you got me. Like when I get rolling, I get rolling. Plus, I'm calculating, so it's game over. One of the things that I did with I said a small group of people that it's actually in the local area, but I help out some businesses actually outside of fitness too. And everybody's freaking out, obviously, right? As far as uncertainty goes and what's going to happen and what are they going to throw at us. And the question, and I asked this myself first. It's not like, ooh, I'm the genius that came up with this, but I can't even remember, like many years ago, where somebody said, "Hey, look," I said, "Guys, what I want you to do right now is I want you to take out the journal, take out your book, wherever you're going to write this. I want you to put yourself out of business." And everybody looked at me like, "What?" I said, "Put yourself out of business. You are you're coming into the area. How are you going to put yourself out of business?" Right? And at first, you can see just the body language, like
just squirming in the seat, just uncomfortable.
I mean, the thing is, when I think about it, it makes me uncomfortable. I'm gonna and I will say this: I draw my confidence. So I think the confidence comes from competence and courage. I think those are the two places it comes from, right? Like, if I've really worked hard on my skill, I'm going to be more competent, right? I'm going to be more confident because I know my stuff, okay? The second one is courage. Like, I don't know this, or this is scary. Fuck it. I'm going to lean in, right? I'm going. Those are the two things. So the reason I feel very, very confident is because of those two things. And I'm just like willing to, like, I'm just so committed to doing the work. I'm so committed to doing the work that I'm like, look, whatever happens, I'm going after it. But stuff like that still makes me go, ugh, right?
Yeah.
And
that's it.
I was doing it the other day.
I'll also say this, because you mentioned the word courage, and I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and
love
who isn't? And and the thing that she says that has stuck with me so much is that courage is courage and vulnerability just go hand in hand. You really can't have one without the other. You can't be a courageous person without some vulnerability, because that vulnerability means being uncomfortable and taking risk, and that in itself takes courage. And I think that's what you're saying here, is that this exercise of how do you put yourself out of business is an exercise in vulnerability, and allowing yourself to sit in that uncomfortable space and opening yourself up to, like, what would that take? What would it look like? And can I get really clear about it? And that is an act of courage at the same time. And so the two are just so linked. And I think this exercise is powerful for, in part, that reason. So yeah, continue. I cut you off.
Well, the thing is that I think too, like when if you go like, well, how can we improve? I don't know. It's just a different question. I think you're inside yourself, right? And when you go like, how do you put yourself out of business? You have to sometimes step outside of yourself and go look at it from the outside in and go like, I'm looking at me, I'm trying to crush myself, right? Yep. But what it does is I was pretty quick about, like, I wrote down, I was like, ooh, well, there could be a place that like does, because deep down inside, I know like we could do this better, right? And then I'd start writing all these things out, like what I would do. Then you kind of look at it and go like, well, but nobody can do all these things. So which are the things that like we're really gonna triple down on, right? And so you go like, okay, if I was going to put you out of business, how would I triple down on this and this and this and this and be better at it? And maybe, right. And what you're actually doing is like you're building your business of the future.
Yeah.
But you're doing it a different way. And I promise you, it's like if you like put yourself, what's the book? The Alter Ego Effect. And it talks about this, and I when I read the book, I went like, oh man, I've been doing this my whole life, right? Where we all have egos. Beyonce, Sasha Fierce, you can read about her story, why she created that character, right? That it was because she became a different person for that different, I would say, situation, which is performance and everything else, right? And in basketball, like, generally, I'm a nice person. Like, I'm a very, like, loving, I love people, I'm a social. On the court, you put me in certain situations, like, man, I'm a different animal. Like, I've been through certain kind of times in my life where I remember, I was like, how could I have even behaved this way? But because you have an alter ego, like, yeah, I had to step into different roles for these different environments that were either dangerous or crazy or whatever else. And the thing is like with this drill, what you end up doing is, you kind of create this alter ego, right? And you go like, how do I like Luka 3.0, but I'm Luka 4.0 and I'm going to try to crush him. Right?
Yeah.
And it creates a different frame of mind, a different view. And it's almost like you separate, right? The emotion, and you go in and you do work, and you might come up with some of the best stuff ever, right? But the other thing too is like, hey, this is a reality. Somebody can come in to your area, whether you're online, offline, I don't care what business you're in, and it can put you out of business. Write it out. How would you put yourself out of business? And you'll have, a number of the next steps to take to improve your business.
Yeah, I think this, again, friends, I hope you're writing this down, because it's a really powerful exercise, Luka. Because I think one of the things that helps people leverage is this movie machine we have in our mind, our imagination. We get to leverage that imagination to step outside of ourselves and say, okay, well, what if I was trying to shut my business down? What would people come in and try to do better than me? And thinking from that other perspective, that other point of view, is so valuable. We don't often give ourselves a chance to do it. We don't often give ourselves that freedom of the space, the time to just imagine and go through exercises like that. But when you do, it can be so valuable. So I think that's huge. I think it's a really great exercise to take away. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. And I like, I was just listening to Donald Miller. It makes a great point. He's like, people have to, hear a thing 8 times before they even like register anything a little bit, right?
Yep, that's it.
So I say things over and over and over and over again, but I want to do it. Sometimes I say it to myself, right? So
you need to hear it over and over again too.
Absolutely. But it's like this concept of thinking time. Like some of the stuff that we're talking about, can be put into thinking time. And Keith J. Cunningham, one of the greatest to me, like business minds of our time, and he wrote the book, one of my favorite books in business, which is called The Road Less Stupid. Great name too. And we talked about thinking time, like how often, like if we're entrepreneurs, the most valuable thing that we do is this, right? Like think. And when I talk to most business owners, I mean, I'll trick them because I'm asking like about their week and stuff like that, and oh, what about that? When you do this, when you do, and you realize that like very few people actually take any time out of the week to think.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying before, is that you got to put your time and your money in some cases to the things that are your priorities. And if you're not spending time on that creativity or that innovation or that imagination or that strategic thinking, then like how important could that be to you if you're not spending time on it? I think that's huge.
Exactly. Yeah. And if that's going to, that's, for instance, right? For me, the business takes care of me and my family, my team, their families to the degree of people in the community. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And so for me to like just go through weeks and months, just work, just head down and not think about the problems, the obstacles, the opportunities, like, what's better, where we're going, what's our North Star? Are we on path? That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll even add a yes and to this point you're making here, which is yes, people need time for thinking and strategic planning and all of those things. And I took a course last year from the Neuro Leadership Institute that I really loved. And one of the things that really stood out to me in that course was this idea that most humans only really have true creative thinking or innovation when they make time for what they call non-linear thinking. So not structured thinking like in a meeting where we have an agenda and we move from this thing to this thing, but true non-linear thinking, which is actually like daydreaming, letting your mind wander, letting your mind make connections that it never made before, requires you to have time where you're just letting it be with no agenda, no problem to solve. Maybe there's some in the back of your mind and subconsciously you'll work on those, but really it's that mind wandering that people find hard to justify on their calendar. It's like, what do you mean I'm just going to spend time daydreaming? I'm like, yeah, go spend some time daydreaming, right? It's likely why you started a business in the first place, is it was born out of some daydreams. And then at some point we stopped thinking like that. we stop allowing ourselves to have the time. We're just too busy to have the time to kind of think like that. And we can't afford not to. And I just wanted to add that on to your point and say, yes, and make time for thinking. And some of it should be nonlinear. Some of it should be just free form daydreaming.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to, like, when you get an idea, like, write down where you got it. You know why? Because it'll confirm that your best stuff comes at times, not when you're sitting down, maybe in front of a pad. Now that's when you're doing that, it's going to feed your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is going to get solved usually when you're doing something.
In the shower, driving the car, taking a walk. It's those daydreaming moments where you have ideas because your brain is allowed to make those connections. So yeah, we're so on the same page about this. In the interest of time, I want to get to our final 5 questions. Okay. These are just 5 questions. They're actually relatively new. I used to ask different ones, but since we pivoted the podcast, I have different ones that are about fitness and being a fitness business owner. And so, you ready for your final 5 questions, Luka?
Let's rock and roll, baby.
Let's do this. It's meant to be rapid fire, but take your time if you want to. Question number 1 is, what's one thing you love about being a gym owner?
I'm going to take my time with this one. I'm not going to just fire it away.
Yeah, go for it.
I definitely, this might sound cliche, but when I say community, not just for myself, but I've seen people here create the greatest friendships. I know you guys too. Like, I think one time you guys both talked to me about it, as far as how many people connected, got married, the kids. I can't count it on my fingers because there's too many.
My husband and Mark's wife both came through the gym.
Bam, right? Like it's when I stop and look at those ripples and how far they've kind of reached or the waves that they've created in community over this time. It's like I could probably cry right now thinking about it. Like it's that I think that's definitely the deeper meaningful answer. And look, I just reread Viktor Frankl's. I try to reread it every year. Man's Search for Meaning. Logotherapy, right? You need 3 things in life. One is have a project to work on, so some meaningful work. Number 2 is like what we actually talked about, which is resilience, which is finding positives out in any adversity, right? Is key. And 3, a community you love that is doing this with you, right? Mm-hmm. Community you love is doing this with you. So you got competence, you got contribution, you got connection. And I think the connection, it's such a special thing, and I just don't think that there's a lot of stuff that is awesome, but to me, like that face-to-face, skin, brick and mortar, what we do as a team and as a gym and as a community, that's one of the greatest.
It's huge. It's huge. And frankly, I think we probably both agree it's becoming more valuable in this digital age. So yeah, let's keep doing it. Yeah. I love that answer. Cool. Question number 2. What's the coolest thing you've ever done for a client? We talk so much about taking care of our clients and creating a special experience for them. What's something cool you've done?
I would like to say that I've done so many cool things that I can't remember them all, which is true. I do really try to go out of my way for that. Let's just say that she owned like some multi-billion-dollar companies and stuff like that, and there's nothing that you could really get her, that would be meaningful.
There's no gift. Yeah.
Like she got a Ferrari for her birthday from somebody. I was like, here I am. I'm still like kind of like in the brokish, trainerish mode, and I like to draw. I actually need to get back to drawing more. And I remember Elite FTS had this shirt. I actually had this shirt, and it was just like this, Jack guy sketched on there. And I was like, and I love, I said black and gray kind of shading and everything else. So I drew this picture. It took me a while. I put a lot of time into it. I don't know how long, like at least 8 to 10 hours, something like that, drawing it. And I wrote this thing in the background and I framed it.
Wow.
And like she just, she cried and she was just like, nobody's ever done anything like this for me. And it was just a lesson of, I think it was a great example because, at that point in time, I probably wasn't feeling the greatest about myself financially, right? Like I'm like, I still can't take care of some things. I'm married and I'm busting my ass 18 hours a day, yada, yada, you know? And it was like, wow, like that, you know, she was like, hey, this means more to me than the Ferrari, you know, and all it, you know, what it meant is like, hey, when you put love and attention and you're not thinking about like, hey, what would be just cool, but it's just like, hey, thoughtful attention, like love. Let me put that into the gift.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better that you can give somebody because those things are priceless, you know? And it doesn't matter how much money you make, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great answer, Luca. And it's so true. I mean, that old kind of cliche of it's really the thought that counts is so true. You know, taking care of clients doesn't mean you have to buy them fancy gifts or fancy merch or give away tons of dollars of your service. Something thoughtful and meaningful. I mean, what a beautiful example of that. Good for you. Cool. Question number 3. What is something that when someone on your team does this, it makes you really fucking happy? What is something that when someone on your team does this, you just get so stoked?
You know, connecting to what we just talked about is like, when somebody goes out of their way, like, for instance, when somebody does something for a client that has nothing to do with, it's on the list of things to do, and you know, it's like our systems or what I taught you, and you know, but it's more of a values thing, actually. So one of our values is, you know, being a servant leader, and a tagline is what the Vigor Ground Summit tagline was last year: leave it better than you found it. I really try to live by this in every day, in a micro and a macro. And when a coach goes and leaves something better than found it, and they go out of their way for a client, and sometimes what I love about it even more is if I find out about it later and nobody even said anything about it, because I know it was just so from the heart that was just like, because now that to me, now I know like you're a 51er, and for anybody that, you know, knows Danny Meyer or studies Danny Meyer setting the table, you know, 51ers are the people. So I feel like I got to elaborate because otherwise it's not
Go for it.
So Danny Meyer calls people 51ers. Like, he's, you know, one of the greatest restaurateurs of our time. And essentially he says, look, if you become technically competent at your craft, your skill. So let's say in training, that's periodization, program design, coaching cues, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? Which, look, extremely important. Anatomy, kinesiology, biomechanics, movement. If you are 100% proficient in those things, you get 49 out of 100 points, right? And the other 51, those are things like empathy, hard work, teamwork, caring. Like, you know, 51ers are fulfilled by service. You actually can't, you know, he's like, you can't teach that. You can teach the 49.
Yep.
You can't teach the 51.
Yeah.
And so to me, like, when you're a 51er, it's an analogy of like, it's, you know, it's like some businesses are like neon lights that are bright as hell and they attract people, but there's no warmth, right? Zero warmth by the light. But 51ers, it's like, yes, you attract with the light, but the moth stays around the light because there's warmth around the light. Yeah. And that's the thing that's like from here. And I know it sounds corny, but I'm like, you know, we've been doing it for a long time. Like, I look for 51ers, you know, and when you're 51ers, like, when you do that, you're like, you know, you don't care about making extra money or this, that, or it's just, you're fulfilled by the service.
Yeah.
And I see that in my team or somebody from my team doing that, man, that's deep joy right there.
That's gold. Yeah. I mean, beautifully said. I mean, that's really beautiful sentiment. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're in the people serving people business, right? And so that 51% is the game, right? It's the whole thing. Yeah. Good for you. That's amazing. Cool. Next up, question number 4 is, this one's a loaded one, and I'm sure we could talk for an hour about this alone, but I try to put it in this at the end just to make sure we touch on it. But if you had to pick one, what is your most reliable strategy for generating leads? If you had to generate leads tomorrow, it's the most reliable thing you go to. What is the strategy?
I'm gonna have to give you 2. Look, I still to this day, I don't even think that you can scale a company without referrals. And here's the thing. Now, even online, you know, like even online, right? So, because the thing is like you legitimately can't. I actually read this somewhere. I was like, you cannot scale a company to a big level without people loving it and wanting to share things about it organically, right? Now, with the different platforms now, it allows it to do that. And like, I'm a big believer in paid advertising, by the way. I feel like there's a certain point in time you got to start doing it. But I believe your training, your coaching is your marketing. This is how I grew Vigor from a little garage. Actually, before it was a garage, we trained people in the woods in Slovenia. And it's like, I had no idea about there was email marketing didn't even exist back then. None of the stuff that we know that most people now, go to for lead gen, it didn't even exist, right? There was only guerrilla stuff. But really, I promise you this, I put so much into the experience and the coaching and the results and the connection with the clients that they would just go like, yo, there's this guy, when I came here to Renton, seriously, this was funny because it's like, yo, there's this Eastern European weird guy, like he's crazy, but like there's no nuts, the energy's not, and it became, honestly, it became like this cult myth type place. People still talk about it. They're like, man, this Vigor's dope, but I remember the garage, there's black mold in that garage. Shit, it was nuts. The point is like, so that has to be like, I think that people look right now, a lot of coaches, they start looking out, what's the tech, the CRM, and they're missing this opportunity right in front of them where, like, just understand that when you do a phenomenal job and you do things like we just talked about, right, where you do acts of love and appreciation, you get thoughtful about what would be meaningful to the client, and you go above and beyond, like those people will not be able to not talk about you. Right. And then what you do is you try to find opportunities where they can talk about you, where more people hear about it, and that's like, the social media and things like that. And you can get smart and strategic, and we don't probably have time. We'll have to do another show about all this.
We'll have to come back, because I think you're right. It's the difference between, going broader and deeper, right? Some people just want to keep casting a wider net, and they're missing an opportunity to go deeper with the people they have there to build more loyalty, more connection. And I think that speaks a lot to your strategy here.
This is important for everybody to hear, though. Here's why. Okay, because when you go deeper first, right? Once you start going wider and people come in, you've got the depth, right? But if you go wider, when people come in, what are they staying for? Mediocrity? Good?
Yeah.
I hate good. I hate average. I'm disgusted by it, right? Like, I want it to be excellent. I want things to be excellent. And then when we cast a wider net, people are coming back to excellence. And basically now the word of mouth, the referrals gets multiplied. And this is one of the biggest mistakes in business, is that when people get bigger, they forget about that foundation of excellence and they cast a wider net, and people keep coming back to, you know what I mean?
That's
like,
it.
Doesn't sell. Enough.
That's it. Yeah, depending on the data you look at, 60 to 70% of clients leave, not because something went wrong, just because they're meh. It's just good, but I'm not stoked about it. And so I think this is.
Told somebody about a meh meal that you had. I've places where, like, I had to tell people. I was like, you have to go and eat this waffle. Oh my God. It's like nobody even asked me about the fucking waffle. Like, I just got to tell them about it. That's how your business has to be.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Well, we'll have to have another podcast just about that topic, because I want to keep talking about it. But question number 5, we're at the last one, which is, and we've given so many of these already, but one more. What's one thing gym owners can start doing better tomorrow?
You know what? I'm going to think a little bit of big picture. So I think question number 4 answered the foundation. So I'm not going to ramp on that, but hint. But
go back. See question 4.
Question 4. But I think that to build on top of that, like, you do have to, moving forward, like, you do have to think about brand. You have to. It really, really is important. And brand can be, like I said, if I come to your city, that locally your brand is so strong that people know about you. And I say this because, we've all, talked to, like, thousands of gym owners, right? Like, and I'm constantly hearing and seeing what's happening. And I'm like, look, like, I Google you. I look on social media. I can't find you. Is only whispers. Man, in today's world, you don't exist. And like, I'm being a little harsh here, but it's real though. Right now, this is how shit works, right? Like, well, I don't see you. We know, like, people need to see something 25 times or more now to make a decision, a buying decision. Where are they hearing that 25 times? I'll tell you, like, if you live in the Renton, Seattle area, you're seeing my videos to a degree where you're like, listen, I need to get this guy out of here, or I need to call him, right? Like, and the thing is, so the word of mouth is maybe hearing about it. Then they see a video here, then they see a cool blog, then they see a share, then they see this, then they see that. And that is brand, the things that we talked about at the beginning. Make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel, give value in advance, most powerful one. And so you have to think about brand, because brand also protects you. Brand protects you because it allows you to go like, hey, now we have this hybrid model. Come and see coach once a month and get, custom denied program and assessment and training, and then get everything delivered in an app and have communication with that person, right?
Yeah.
And that's another revenue stream. And then you can launch an online 8-week program. And then, there's a lot of, I can get geeky about
it. Yeah, but it's your reputation, right? It's also the very top of the funnel that people have just awareness about you. It's just, it's so crucial.
I can't go to the gym because I'm in another state, or I can't afford, $500 a month, $400 a month, but I can do that and I can work with them. And wow, like I really want to work with them. So, but that's brand, right? That's brand. And so, yeah, brand is a big, I think that's one of those things that we could go probably a whole podcast on, or 10 of them, like on brand. But I want you to keep that in mind, because sometimes that's tough, right? I want to challenge you when you listen to this, and I'm poking you and going like, hey, listen, you're not working on that. You should be uncomfortable, because that should wake you up. And like I said, do positive focus on Luka, right? Remember, first one is no emotion.
Yeah, that's it.
But that would be something that's really important.
Yeah, amazing. That was brilliant. You nailed your final 5 questions. So thank you. To wrap things up here, my friends. Well, I'm going to have you back because I wrote down at least 10 things we need to keep talking about. So we'll do this again. But is there anything any place where people can find you online? Where can they go see more Luka, learn more about your summit, learn more about the work you're doing? So how can people find you?
I'm going to kind of drop there's a lot of stuff, but the places that I do the most stuff on Instagram, because I kind of share everything I do through Instagram. So it's at Luka Hocevar, LukaHocevar. And Michael's done a great job of having a little name under there, so you can find me.
Over there. Where is it? There.
Yeah, there. So there. I got a couple of podcasts. The main one that I'm really consistent with is the Vigor Life podcast. So everything from really, it's for coaches and gym owners. We talk about a lot of stuff, from mindset to coaching and training to business to you name it. And then on Facebook, and maybe when we talk about brand, to go check out for the gym, Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance on Facebook. I'm really active with videos there. It's mostly trainings, nutrition, right? Like kind of end user things. And YouTube has been something that I've, now kind of organized a lot more. There's, 1,300 videos there. You could have about 5 to 7 years of watching every day. But I put all the podcasts there, the new content, and that's just, you can same thing. Just search Luka Hocevar on that. VigorGroundFitness.com is the page for the gym, but that's also where the podcasts and blogs and everything get uploaded as well.
Great. That's amazing, Luka. We'll include all of those links in the show notes down below, whether you're watching on whatever platform, it'll be down below. So go look for all the things Luka just mentioned and check him out. Obviously, this dude's brilliant. I'm so lucky to have you on this podcast, Luka. Your perspective and your passion and your fire for this work just shows every time I talk to you, and I always take away something valuable, and today was absolutely no exception. So thank you for your time and energy, and I'll have you back again soon, I'm sure.
Please. Thank you, my friend. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Take care, dude.
You too, brother.
Hey friends, before you go, just one more thing. If you enjoy this podcast, you get value out of it, you enjoy listening, please share this podcast, comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Please share it with friends and family. We don't spend any money on marketing or advertising. And so the only way people find out about this podcast is from you. So please do everything you can to share it with friends and fellow colleagues in the fitness industry. We love making it, and we want to keep doing it for a long, long time. So I appreciate your support. Go have a kick-ass day. Bye.